Hey folks, you may know me as the guy that already reviewed this movie in 2019, but my views have evolved as well as I have a different co-host here with me, my boy Zane.
Hey guys.
Guys, this is actually Zane's first time watching Parasite, so when you watched it just recently, so I'm excited to get into it. Let's talk about Parasite. So Parasite was directed by Bong Joon-Ho and is actually one of the first foreign language films to do as well in the U.S. and the first foreign language film to win Best Picture at the Academy Awards. Roma almost won it a few years before, but unfortunately did not. And Parasite, on top of being Best Picture, also won Bong Joon-Ho his first Oscar for Best Director when he was up against literally Martin Scorsese and Quentin Tarantino. So suffice to say, I don't want to give away too much about the plot in case you haven't seen it, but it's a genre-bending, masterful tale of greed, class discrimination, and family expectations. Let's just talk Parasite, sis.
Don't call me sis.
So, Zane, this is your first time seeing it, ever. I think it was also producer Lacey's first time seeing it as well.
That it was.
What was your initial reaction to the film? I'm curious to think of when the screen goes black and the credits come up, what emotion rushes over you?
So there was so much hype that just kind of existed around this film. So I was almost kind of like scared to watch it just because I was like, it's another one of those ones where everybody was talking about it. And because I didn't watch it before everybody was freaking out about it, I was worried that like I wasn't going to be as into it as other people were.
You were worried the hype was too high.
Not even so much that the hype was too high, that I would just be, I guess maybe the hype was too high, but having watched it, I feel like I came so close to being spoiled on a lot of things, but I had no idea. Like, I assumed there was a supernatural element to it. I don't know why. Nobody told me that there was a supernatural
it's called
element.
Parasite, you
Maybe,
know?
yeah.
You could infer that it could be science fiction of some sort.
Maybe I just
or
thought it was the anime Parasite, just fucking the weird hand thing.
What's crazy is a lot of people consider this to be the best movie of 2019, even people who don't give a fuck about the Oscars.
Yeah.
And that's in correlation with what I consider to be the best year in films in recent memory. I mean, you had Waves, Jojo Rabbit, 1917. I mean, there's all these movies that were so like beloved at this time.
Yeah.
And yet a foreign language film, which has never really broken through, like, you know.
That so many people have that like stigma against
Absolutely.
like having to read a lot of the text and everything. So that is something that to see just how good this was and to watch it break past that. I know there was some controversy about like a lot of people were like, oh, how dare the Oscars give it to a foreign film? And it's like, it's just supposed to be regards to cinema greatness. And I really think that this showed through, and there's a lot of stuff that I really want to get into at the spoilers and everything. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it's just like, even without saying anything, because I feel like I sat through a masterclass on how to talk about this movie without spoiling anything, because I lived through the whole hype and
it was never spoiled for you.
It was never spoiled for me. The only thing that I knew was a poor family went to work for a rich family and crazy things happened. That is all I knew about the movie. And technically, yeah, that happened, but it didn't stop any of what was to come. I knew, because I know a little bit about like Korean culture and everything. I knew that it was a large take on kind of the classism that's very prevalent in a lot of cultures in general, but especially very prevalent in the Korean culture. So getting to watch almost, I would say the final, even though at the end, I'd say the final result of what I felt after watching it was pure happiness, because
it was just
really
such a great adventure,
it.
you know, and like it's such a different take on storytelling, and it also does what I've always called this. I know there's a real word for it. I think it's just being earnest and realistic, but I call it like neighborhoodism, right? And it's where you're watching a movie, and the world is so real. You can not only envision where the characters are, but you can envision the culture of the people around them, what their neighborhood looks like, everything about it. The landscape of this movie, as well as just the characters in this movie, feels so real and genuine to where they are. I mean, just the way they've mentioned like North Korea in the movie. It's like, obviously that's a hot button topic in South Korea.
Yeah.
And the way they handle it is very similar to how we'd handle like political conversations here. Some levity, some genuine fear and realism. And that's carried throughout the whole movie. And it just feels so earnest, even though it spends so much time being ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's also so fucking earnest. So for me, before we get into the spoilers, I'm just going to give my number score. It's evolved since I last watched it. I really feel like this is like a very strong 9 for me. And the issues I have with it is it's not like any quantifiable thing. It's just like, is it a perfect 10 for me? For me, it wasn't even the best movie of that year, but it's still one of the best movies that most people are ever going to see because it really broke through and so many people watched it. So what would your number score for?
So
be?
My number score, I was like right on the bubble. I think I'm gonna
give it a 30. No, just kidding.
I'm gonna give this a 9.5 out of 10. Part of me is like, it's so close to being just a straight up 10 out of 10.
It's really close to being a perfect movie, and I think it just falls under that thing where you just can't quantify why it's not perfect, really.
Not even so much. I wouldn't even so much say that like I didn't. There's stuff that I've only seen it once.
Yeah,
and
it's a great rewatch.
I think that there's so many things that this is one of those movies that on subsequent rewatches I'm going to enjoy it more and more. So just right out of the gate, just jumping into this, I'm already at a 9.5. I'm probably going to end up watching this again and again and again and end up considering it one of the... I can't give a movie a 10 out of 10 that I have not seen multiple times.
Yeah.
Like, I've only got a couple of movies.
Yeah, I mean, even for me, this is the 4th time I've seen Parasite, and it's the first time I cracked open my 4K Blu-ray, guys. Get the 4K Blu-ray. It's got good shit on it. It's really nice. And support physical media.
I'm probably going to end up picking this one up as
it's a great one, yeah. Okay, great. Let's move on to the spoilers. We'll be right back. And we're back. I'm thrown off by how stupid your comment was in between. Regardless, we're talking about Indiana Jones for some stupid reason, but back to Parasite, a better movie than what you're talking about. So Parasite. Okay. I just want to talk a little bit about my experience seeing the movie first, because I kind of forgot to mention that. So in regards to the foreign language aspect of it, the first time I saw this movie, I saw it in AMC. It was fine. Second time I saw it, I went to this local theater in Cincinnati called the Esquire, like this kind of like smaller.
Oh yeah.
And I went in there, and first some people like kind of recognized me from like the podcast. I was like, oh, that's awkward. Yeah. But then on top of that, I saw somebody who looked like a film school student. Like if you were to like draw one, that's it. Like that's it. The beret, the scarf. I'm not fucking with you. I'm not. And that person I heard get up in the middle, like towards the beginning of the movie actually, and be like, I didn't know this was a foreign language film, and left. Said that all out loud in the middle of the movie. So even though this did cut through, I do want to say, for the people out there who have that issue to climb, first of all, get over it. I mean, like if you can only watch Squid Game with the dub, there's something wrong. Secondly,
I didn't know there was a dub for Squid Game.
There's absolutely. Me and Franny actually watched the dub, and I also watched the sub, but not related. But I'm just saying, if you can't get past that, there's a shitty American version coming soon. So you can look out for that. Lacey was actually looking up before we started recording this. Apparently, it's like a sequel-esque or another movie based in the universe.
What universe?
I don't know.
The world?
Maybe it's about the maid who was allergic to peaches, before she, fucking died in this movie.
Oh, God.
All right. What is your favorite scene from Parasite? I need to know.
So I think probably one of my favorite scene, I love when they're all sitting there, like right after the rich family has left, and
They're all
they're
in the living
instantly fucking around, and you just know, you're like, no, this only ends badly. Like, this scene cannot exist in a world like, of course you guys are getting drunk at their house. Like, if you're gonna steal their expensive booze or whatever, like, I get that, but at the same time, it's like, it's obviously like storming really hard outside. They make a handed comment like, oh, we really hope that it rains because the son really likes when it rains. He likes to play out in the rain or whatever. But then it goes from like this rain, you start to see that it is storming very heavily, and it's like, they're gonna come home, bad things are gonna happen, and it's just like instantaneously, it's this scene that the whole family is having a lot of fun. They're connecting. You get all this character growth. You kind of, not even so much character growth, but character development. They show you more as to like who these people are, the way they interact with each other. You get that funny scene with the dad and the mom where
you thought that was funny.
Well,
I think
like,
okay,
it's meant to be levity because it's like, oh, is shit gonna go down?
But here's the thing, though. Here's the thing that I think that alludes to something later. I think that he genuinely was upset because, spoilers, guys, he does some fucked up shit later. Yeah. So I think that it boils down to like the aggression building of like that class discrimination and them calling him a cockroach and everything just building.
But that's still character development.
Yeah, no, but exactly. I'm saying is like, for me, it never registered as funny. No,
but they try to play it off as a funny thing.
I see what you're saying.
That's the fact that
you
he
mean
turns around
amongst
and
the characters.
Yeah, amongst the characters, it's meant to be like, oh, haha, he was playing a joke. But us, we're like, that was really fucked up. Like, that was that was very problematic. But it's still character development. You're learning more about these characters. But you get this like super intimate scene with the lower class family. And then, but the whole time, your heart is just racing because you're like, the rich family is going to come home. Like, there's no way that they're not going to come home, and this is not going to end well.
And I think that scene, it really exemplifies how genre bending the movie is in general. Like, this movie is a horror movie, it's a family movie, it's a comedy, and it's a fucking heist movie at times. Yeah. I mean, when they're taking down the nanny,
all the other workers,
and all the other workers, that whole thing, I mean, it's just basically stocked into smoking barrels. Like, that's what it is. And in that scene where you're seeing them like start to freak out, argue with the nanny who obviously shows up, there's that whole back and forth, like acting like they're better than her, and then her discovering they're just like they're in the exact same boat. It's really great storytelling because at any point you can kind of look at any character on screen and both despise and adore them for different reasons. Even the rich family, because if you think about the rich family and how like judgmental they are, you also come around to the idea that like, oh, well, the mother is very trusting, and it's fucked up that they're doing this. Like, and at the end of the day, like they're just not qualified to do the things that they're paying them to do, and they're literally tricking this woman because they can. But at the same time, it's like, well, she's a rich fucking asshole, and these people are like living in such a shitty, like low grade apartment. They opened the windows to get fumigated.
Well, one of the big things that the director actually came out and said,
Bong Joon-Ho,
he said after the movie had been out and people were kind of talking about like, oh, Parasite, he was talking about how the poor family is a parasite on the rich family. He's like, no. Everyone in this movie is the parasite.
Yeah, everyone's parasitic in their own ways.
There's the basement family, which is he said is allegorical to North Korea, who they're kind of like sheltered and they're stuck in these little like.
Yeah, I mean, he literally spends the whole day blindly like following and adoring someone. Yeah.
Then you've got the poor family who is taking from this rich family, and then you have the rich family who's feasting off of the labor and everything that is done for them because they physically cannot do it themselves.
Not to mention the elitism, right? I mean, just the constant conversation of the smell, the stench, right? And I actually used to get this. So I saw the movie once, like way before a lot of people. I got to go to an early screener back when I was working at a video store. And I know, what a great job. Totally made sense to have that in 2018, 2019. But I remember reading about a possible ending that Bong and Joon-Ho had like flirted with. And you know, the scene at the end where like they're there and he's accomplished now and he's bought the house. And then, you know, the idea is like the father's going to rejoin them. The one idea ending he had was just the kid like start gagging on the smell of his father because now he's moved up in class. But he didn't want it to read like the only parasite in the movie was this family. And he felt like that was just such a strong end note that he changed it. But fuck, I would have liked that ending a lot.
Yeah. There was also, he kicked around the idea of not adding the like second part to the end scene after he becomes very rich and successful and they come back and it's supposed to be like, oh, they could. And then they show that he's actually just in the house and it's a more realistic. He had thought about not adding that and he's like, oh, I can give, like, even though this was a terrible thing that happened, these were all horrible events, I can give it some reconciliation. But he was like, but that's not honest, that's not genuine. So he decided to add that last part in to kind of make it read more true to life, because it's like, it doesn't always work out sometimes. Like sometimes things are bad.
Yeah, I just think it's so interesting that like we said, you can take any character in this movie, even ones that are on screen for such a short amount of time, you know, like characters like the friend who got him the tutoring job. I mean, at the end of the day, he was kind of sort of maybe grooming a younger girl and then using his friend who he thinks is unfuckable and poor.
Yeah.
To take over her studies. No. And it's like, that sounds really horrible when you phrase it like that, but when you put it through the other prism, this friend is going off to study. He has to study abroad, and he's given this other dude who he knows is down on his luck a chance to make money. Because the difference with all the other characters and the son character is he genuinely was smart enough to teach that girl.
Yeah.
But obviously he didn't do it very nicely or do the correct things. But I love that about the movie. I really do.
Yeah, because that's, every character has its motivation, and at the same time you can justify each of the characters, but at the same time you can say each one of them is wrong. And it's kind of that almost self-reflective look at like, hey, we need to see like everybody has faults, everybody has redeeming things. Like, find those. And it's so interesting watching a piece of cinema just really build like that. And the whole, like, do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I get it. Like the build. Yeah, it's honestly the other thing about this movie that I think is like really interesting is how still in the conversation it is. You know, like producer Lacey was telling us before we started, she was asking some questions about the movie, and she was asking like, oh, like, you know, they have that Morse code scene where the guy is hitting the panels with his head in the basement. Do you think that the flooding scene that goes on later in the film has anything to do with that? I have no idea for sure, but that'd be fucking cool. So if that's true, tell us in the comments what that shit means if you know.
Yeah. And from a production standpoint, like just looking at all of the, like, they built that whole town, like that whole space that gets flooded.
Yeah.
They built that on, I think they said it's like in a big like water tower or something to like hold it all in, and then they can like drop it down or raise it up. And it's like they, like, just going through building that, doing things like he said that he really wanted it to be a staircase movie. So even though the building that they got to shoot at was just a single story building, they actually edited it or CGI'd it to have that second story and to add in all those additional staircases and everything. And it's so visually captivating to look at, as well as being just a masterclass in like character interactions, because each one of the characters grows and changes and feeds off of physically and from a performative standpoint, feeds off of their other actors, and their characters feed off of the other characters. So it's just so interesting to watch how each point in the filmmaking process, this just takes and absolutely nails.
Yeah. And, like, I'm trying to think of things I don't like about the movie to tell you, but there's nothing I really don't like about it. I will say it's got the most awkward sex scene of all time, but that actually totally plays and favors the movie well, because it gives you another description of what they think about, lower, cheap, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like
the cheap underwear thing where it's like,
yeah,
that would
exactly.
get me off.
And then she's like, buy me drugs, and shit. I was like, oh God.
Move. Yeah.
It's very, very disturbing and hard to watch, but at the same time, it's also like, well, that really gives you an insight that even this mother character who acts like she's just this very nice, open-minded, great person, like even she thinks lesser of people of a lesser wealth class. So, yeah, I mean, the movie's good, guys. What else can I say? The movie's great. The geode aspect, a lot of people didn't enjoy that. Once you dig into like more like symbolism that's based in Korean culture specifically, it really outlines it better that way. Like, I think you have to know a little bit about Korean culture to get some of those aspects. But I think at the same time, he really explained it and showed it, Like, when everything was flooding and he's pulling that geode out of the water. Yeah. It's just a great scene. It really works.
And that's one of the other things that, like, reading later on about the director's breakdown of the different aspects of Korean culture that each of the families represented, the basement family being the North Koreans, the rich family actually being the almost westernized Korean people, where they got in really quickly to all of the advancements, all the westernization that got a lot of people rich very quickly and has put them into a good place.
They wanted to play off like the idea of wealth and like, how big like the internet and everything also like helped has disparaged classism even more in Korea. And there's actually a beach ball on the cover with the same colors as Google in reference to that.
Okay.
So just another little fun fact there. I mean, he really was so intricate in the marketing even. I mean, the black lines over the eyes was also super interesting and really caught people. And you would see that poster and have no idea what it was about and be like, I'm going to see that shit.
Yeah. There's so many little details about this that you can tell that it was made with love, that the people behind it were going through, they had a very specific vision and they went through and they just absolutely crushed it. And God, I'm thinking there's so many things that I want to say about this movie, but it's like, what is a point in the movie that got your heart racing, or that really just made you like,
oh dude, the best thing, and this is something Bong Joon-Ho does all the time, is he'll take an innocent idea and he'll really flip it to be more ethereal and spectral than you would ever imagine. And I think that the scene for me is when the mother is describing how her son has seen a ghost and been traumatized by that. Yeah. And you're having realizations of like what that means throughout the movie, and like, oh shit, he saw this person and this. And it's just played so creepy, and you're like, is this going to have a supernatural turn in it? Is it going to have this? And it's just to make you feel uneasy. And the reason why he does that is like, well, did it make the child in the film feel uneasy? Well, then maybe it'll help you better relate to what he's actually saying by making you feel the same way. I really love that about his features. He always does that. He just adds this element. It's like an unexplainable thing You know, maybe it's because of his individual culture. Maybe it's because of the artist that Bong Joon-ho is.
Mm-hmm.
But he's always able to add this bit of like almost mysticism that you really can't put a finger on it, but he always does it, and it's always perfect for the movie, even if there's nothing supernatural about it.
Yeah, and that's really just kind of getting to see all this. Gee.
We're gonna watch so many Bong Joon-ho movies now because I love
yeah.
that you're all in, and I'm like, dude, we gotta watch Mother, we gotta watch these, we gotta watch this.
And that's it's been on my radar for so long, and that's one of the big things. Like, I feel like Korean cinema has been kind of overlooked in lieu of a lot of other things that are going on for a while now, because that's even things like one of my favorite movies is Old Boy, not the remake. Never the remake.
Did you watch the remake?
I did not watch
then
the remake.
You can't say that.
I have seen...
It's bad, but you don't know. You don't know.
I've seen parts of the remake. I've seen like side by side.
Do you like Spike Lee movies? Did you like Old Boy?
Yeah.
Do you like Spike Lee movies?
Old Boy made me uncomfortable, which I think is what good cinema does.
Yeah.
But
answer the questions. Do you like Spike Lee? Black Klansman, Do the Right Thing. There's so many movies.
I don't dislike Spike Lee movies. I've not.
Wait, you don't like Black Klansman, really?
I've not actually watched Black.
Anyway,
sorry, I just hurt your feelings.
Jeez, it's just like you're like I bet you haven't seen a single. Well, you know what? Name one Spike Lee movie you've seen. Looks like we're gonna watch the English remake of Old Boy as well as the Korean version, and we'll do a cut comparison at some point.
Okay,
there's no fucking way I'm not doing that now.
Did Spike Lee do Blade? I know. I'm trying to think of.
I just can't.
I'm trying to think of a Spike Lee movie now.
You know,
this is just instantly just take me off the internet. I guess that's me. It was fun.
It doesn't even matter, guys. He dresses like Waluigi at the Oscars, and I love it. Anyway, I mean, there's so much you could talk about with this movie, but it's never going to do it justice. If you haven't seen it, you need to watch it to understand what we're saying. And if you have seen it, you know just as well as I do that it's so great. It's hard to pinpoint one little thing. You know, you have the sister character like pretending to know anything about art therapy at all.
Yeah.
And it's fucked up, but very convincing at one point. And same thing goes with like the father being the driver. I mean, they're all very good at assimilating and being kind of these slimy people that lie to them. And that's just like one of the best parts about the movie. It's crazy. The characters are so rarely the best part of movies these days. And like this absolutely has great characters.
I think one of my favorite lines was the dad at one point says, "Oh, if she was a different person, she could be a great con artist." It's like that's but she is. Like, you all are.
Yeah, like, do you not get that, bro? No, you nearly killed a woman with peaches.
Oh, dude, the characters are so great in this movie, and they hold it to, like, it's such a, traditionally speaking, it's a large cast to, like, hard specify on, but each one of the characters feels so genuine and just there.
It's crazy to think that this was probably the best ensemble cast of 2019 when movies like Knives Out came out and Jojo Rabbit and stuff. It's like, these are movies that have better ensembles than most, and it doesn't even really compare. But yeah, I feel like that's really, I mean, if we just keep going on, you're just going to keep hearing about how much we love it. Like,
yeah, just over here gushing the whole time.
I mean, you know, honestly, I think we can move on to the game.
Do you want to play a game?
Do you want to play a game? All right, we'll be right back with the game. And we're back, guys. I figured we would play the game. Please, Bong Joon-ho, will you make this? Hit the button. So for people who know Bong Joon-ho, he doesn't just do Korean language films. He also does English language films. I mean, he's a very versatile director. He can just do many things. So I always thought, well, great director, great project generally leads to great things. So what franchise or idea do I want Bong Joon-ho to like grasp onto? And for me, I really feel like DC needs something else. It's just been fucking failure after failure after failure. And I'm like, okay, what are some like really niche DC characters that they could just like, spruce up a little bit, maybe throw a little pizzazz on, you know what I'm saying?
Who are you thinking to give him?
Dude, make a fucking grimy, creepy ass Solomon Grundy picture.
That would be super fucked.
Just give him like a fucking backwards insane Frankenstein film to make, or Swamp Thing. I mean, just any character that has like that we have to have an understanding of without that character expressly telling us, because that's where he's so strong, because for instance, he breaks the language barrier with his films. I mean, we don't always understand Korean cinema sensibilities. Decisions are made and we're like, I wouldn't make that decision.
Yeah.
We don't understand the sensibility, but he is such a great director. He can make us understand the characters.
Yeah.
So give him something really juicy to work with,
So I'm kind of in a similar vein, but weird deep cut. I don't know if this is the kind of comics that you're into. I'm also about the comics angle because I feel like that is kind of one of those mediums.
And it's just like the hottest thing right now. Like if a comic book movie is pretty much like printing money. Like nobody's not going to greenlight a comic book movie with Bong Joon-ho directing it.
So I would love to see him direct Saga.
Okay.
What is that? What is that?
It's just like, oh my god, can we get? Like, I would like to see him direct the Wonder Twins, like just the most obscure.
It's fucking. It is. It's one of those things that it's not another superhero movie. It is a whole universe to build off of that I feel like he does a great job, even for people who don't understand Korean culture. He does a great job of laying out breadcrumbs for the meanings behind things that I just feel like it would be so difficult to put something like Saga on screen.
Yeah, that's why I hear that and I'm like, that sounds like you picked maybe the one thing that I would have no fun with. But I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Let me ask a more, in my opinion, interesting question.
Okay.
So, all right. One of the best crime movies of all time is Infernal Affairs. And then Martin Scorsese remade it and made The Departed. And it's just as great. Some people say even better. And they're remaking Parasite right now. What if Bong Joon-ho made a Korean language version of one of the American classics? And what would you want it to be? And you can't say Catch Me If You Can, because I'll slap the shit out of you. For me, I'm just thinking, like, what's a great movie that came out that, like, his sensibility could just totally fucking change? Dude, a Bong Joon-ho Pulp Fiction would literally... I know that sounds so stupid, but it sounds kind of fucking awesome, too.
It's such a fucking...
like, like like a thriller and, like, the deep streets of Seoul and shit. All this crime is happening. All these murders. And it's like a Pulp Fiction-esque idea. There's a fixer, and I think that he could do such a good job with something like that. Like, just take an American class. Because if they're going to keep taking foreign language films and being like, let's just fucking shove our dick right in there and just make it our own. I got so mad I threw off my wristband. But it gets old. It gets old seeing great movies remade. I mean, I'm not a Vanilla Sky hater per se, but what the fuck was that? Like, there's so many movies out there that didn't have to be remade into, like, English. Why don't we just take one of those English language films and Bong Joon-ho can make it better and y'all can suck it?
So, probably another hot take. I would want to see him do Saw.
Saw?
Korean body horror is fucking next level.
I feel like Lee Winnell just already has, like... That could be cool.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't know if it'd be my first choice, But that could be good. Bong Joon-Ho directed this movie called The Host. It's like a monster movie. And he's done a lot of like thrillers and horror stuff. And yeah, I could totally see it. I feel like it'd have to be like, it have to be just his own Saw movie. I don't want him to remake the first one. I want it to be his version of traps.
I want it,
his
I want
version
it
of surprises.
Saw, but if it was based off of, like, if it was like somebody,
they could call it Saw, but Korean. Is that what you're saying? No, I get you.
Like somebody in, like, it's just like wholesale reinvent the whole thing. Just dude, like somebody trying to keep the heart of it. Keep it like, oh, somebody's trying to make people appreciate life again, but for the reasons that like it would happen in Korean culture.
Let me tell you why. Fuck that idea. No, I'm just kidding. It's awesome. But I just want to change it a little bit. So there's all this Elseworld stuff going on with the Parasite thing where it's like, oh, it's the same universe, but it's a different story. What if the Saw version movie that Bong Joon-Ho made was instead about a copycat killer fanatic in South Korea who copies the traps and ideas of Jigsaw?
Yeah.
And it's still within the same livable, credible universe, but then you don't have to explain for the 900th time how Jigsaw isn't dead.
Yeah.
So I think that could actually be a better Saw movie than Spiral was. So
fuck yeah.
Bong Joon-Ho, if you're listening,
get in contact with whoever makes Saw.
Yeah, just talk to Lee Winnell and Blumhouse and make a good movie.
Yeah.
Not that Spiral was it was kind of bad. But it wasn't super bad. It was kind of bad. Anyway, guys, down in the comments, let us know a franchise that you want Bong Joon-Ho to like take the reins of and add a flavor to. Is there like a show that you'd want him to take over for a season? Or is there any movie that you'd like to see developed into a show, like with Blind Spotting, or for instance, his film Snowpiercer is a show now with Daveed Diggs.
Great
guys,
show.
Yeah, from what I hear, it's a great show. I've never fucking seen it, but I love Daveed Diggs. So guys, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Please like and subscribe. Thank my boy Zane for being here. I'm sorry, Producer Lacey, we didn't talk more about the shots from Parasite. I am aware that the shots are really great. There's so many inventive ones. You in the comments can tell us how much we missed in our review. Tell us the things that you loved about Parasite. And by the way, I love you and goodbye. Peace out.